live at the 9th Avenue New York City Independent Film Festival, and I'm here with Tony J. Selimi. Tony, tell us about this wonderful film that you're displaying here at the festival, which I happened to see a sneak preview of the other night, and I'm excited about seeing it again tonight. But tell us a little bit about your history and about why and how this film came about.
Living My Illusion was co-created with my clients Joel and Kimia Van, and it is carrying a powerful message for humanity. We live in a world where it's just so distorted, our reality is distorted, and we have so many different expectations that we become desensitized to what our body truly tells us. In time, we actually stop really listening to this powerful alarm our inner intelligence has, and we end up being with the wrong people in the wrong relationship, and we end up causing so many different problems in the world, especially socially, but most importantly for people who have families, who have children, where children can grow up in violence. And when either parents, where they're not in love, they show up behaviors which are very aggressive, very unloving, and children naturally pick those up.
Wow.
So Living My Illusion is really a voice for many men and women out there, and people who go through midlife crisis, who may have problems in their relationship and may not truly speak their truth of how they truly feel deep inside.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. So tell us a little bit about your history, your personal history. How did you get into coaching?
I've been coaching for the last 10 years full time, but prior to that I worked in technology, running multi-billion IT programs globally. And although I was mentoring and developing people, I actually spent 20 years to seek coaches, mentors and healers to help me on my personal journey. As we shared on a conversation last night over a dinner table, I come from former Yugoslavia, and I was born in Macedonia, but from a very young age I actually observed the reality around me, especially the abuse that was towards women, towards my mother, towards my sisters. And also I knew that I was somehow different from the rest of the community around me, and I simply did not fit. It was this inner knowing as a child that there's a bigger world out there for me, and sometimes I didn't even feel like I fit in this planet. I feel like I've been just dropped in this planet and I'm going back home someday. So
wow.
So I really just
like you felt like you were an alien or something like that?
Correct, absolutely. I really felt I was an alien, that someday a ship will come and literally take me away, bring me back home. Because what I was observing, the various challenges in the society, anger issues, war, bullying, nationalism, going into through a process of civil war, when you see tremendous violence and tremendous, I would say, atrocities that as a young child they really touch your soul and they can damage you.
Traumatizing, sure.
Traumatizing, so you have those traumatizing experiences and you ask yourself the question, why me?
And why is that? Why you?
I believe that globally we have still the same processes are happening anywhere in the world. Just because the war in former Yugoslavia stopped, we as human beings, it's in our nature to destroy and build. But what we normally tend to do is when we build, we're very happy we build something, but we deny that part of ourselves which is necessary for the next level of evolution to happen. So although war is not something that anybody likes, but if you look through history, we've never had times in history where the entire planet was at peace. And if you look at nature itself, every season nature destroys and builds. But we are accustomed to it and accepting nature as something that we have no control over. But at some events that are happening globally, it's if you observe from a higher perspective, and if we as human beings were to see how everything serves, we would shift our awareness very quickly, very fast.
So tell us a little bit about a little story that I heard about your grandfather and the impact that your grandfather had in your life. And also tell us, how did you make that jump from IT to coaching?
My grandfather, when I was born, he lifted me up on top of a dinner table because my mother gave birth to me while we had guests in our family,
wow,
in our house. and he said he's going to be a master healer. He's going to go around the world and impact millions, if not billions, of people. And when I was young, I experienced severe illness that left me hospitalized for 2.5 years, to the point that my doctors told my parents, "Come and pick up your child, he's dying." So these people took me back to the spiritual teachers that my grandfather and my mom followed, and they said, "Okay, your predictions are wrong, you know, he's dying." And I know what my parents and me as a child, looking back at the events, that they were laughing and saying, "Okay, this is just another test for him."
Okay.
So it's basically, this is where I built my curiosity about going out there in the world and study science, maths, technology, quantitative psychology, cognitive behavior, NLP, and every other, I would say, modality that helps people heal from within. And I wanted to create an engineering processes, and also a software, just the way we upgrade our computers, the way we upgrade our phones. I wanted to create something that serves people to be able to update and upgrade themselves every single day, because our outer environment, as you've seen in the last 20 years, has changed tremendously. So the way we do business, the way we love, the way we find the date, today we go on Tinder and Grindr and we go swipe left, swipe right, has changed. So the young people will not connect to something that was created 100 years or 200 years ago. They need powerful new tools. Equally, leaders need powerful new tools to lead the new millennia, and how can retain and develop the millennia, which are extremely technologically advanced to birth. You know, some of my clients' children at the age of 2, they use the iPad to call me on Skype.
Right. Absolutely.
So the jump for me for technology, it wasn't really different, because the greatest technology I love, I would say, study and research is human beings. You know, we have internal technology that created me, you, and every human being out there. And for me, that's what I've devoted my life to understand that technology, because it's no different to the technology we create outwardly. Every technology we've created comes from within us. So somebody from within their true being, they're bringing an idea that turns into a technology that we admire. For me, I admire people. I admire the intelligence that every human being has, and how can we harness that to help them elevate, expand, so collectively as humanity we can move to the next stages of our human evolution as we go into the age of constant experiences.
And we actually talked a little bit about that yesterday, actually the day before, when we spoke about Nikola Tesla. Now, the vast majority of the Americans, or maybe the younger Americans, think Tesla's just a car maker. And that's not so. So tell us what your experience and knowledge and information is about Nikola Tesla.
Nikola Tesla, first of all, comes from that part of my world. So we are very proud. We have some really big names that created something that shifted us. Without Nikola Tesla, we will not have any of the technology we have today.
Sure, like
there'll be no
control.
electricity. There'll be no electricity, full stop.
You beat out Edison.
Yeah, he'll beat out Edison.
Powering the New York City through
correct.
the waterfall, the Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls, correct. So I mean, he even designed the technology that can bring free electricity, and that was really hidden away. And there are so many different theories out there about how he back then got us the technology that currently I believe it already exists. Where basically, when you think about the magnificence of the universe, when you think about this Earth that sits in mid-air and rotates at a speed that we don't see, and if you see all the magnetic fields that the Earth has, and to tap into that, I can see how easily it is to actually create an infinite source generate power from it, which is totally infinite. And we have so much, I would say, magnetic fields in the universe, that the universe is so abundant. I don't really see why do we limit those resources.
Well, it's economic, you know that. It's,
yes.
They set up a toll so that you have to pay the toll. And that's utility companies and things like that. But imagine if we live in a future at some point where you also have to pay for air.
Yes, I mean,
we've seen this in science fiction.
Yes, I mean, we've seen that in science fiction, but I do have hope for humanity, and I do have trust that we as human beings will come together into one voice to actually for betterment of humanity. Yes, all of those, I would say, future possibilities are there, but part of us being who we are beings with infinite choices, and we are beings where we have the ability to consistently evolve and actually better ourselves. So sometimes through betterment of ourselves, we have to destroy those parts of ourselves which do not serve us any longer. So, for instance, if we look at the way education works, because the 5 sectors, my work as a human behavioral expert and emotional intelligence expert, on top of that as a speaker going globally, it's government, how to really bring new way of leading the country and bring this work into government so they can be more efficient, they can be more sort of, I would say, conscious about how to lead the next generation and how to lead the entire country, so it goes into this collaboration rather than looking at other countries as threats. Then the leadership sector. There's a whole new breed of new leaders. You know, I had the privilege to work with some young leaders who actually are extremely successful and never been to school. They are dropouts, but they are generating millions. You know, it's sort of, it's for me, it's we have a whole new way of leading this new generation. This
it's a great time to be alive because everything is about disruption. Right?
Yeah.
I myself owned an internet company that I sold 20 years ago, and prior
big
to
mistake.
that, big mistake. Well, you know, yes. But when I used to do the presentations for people for the board, okay, they would ask me things like, "Can't you guys do this out of the basement?" And my answer was, I wouldn't have sold to you if I wanted to keep rubbing 2 sticks together, you know?
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that I sold this company to a radio network. So when they would insult me at the board meetings, they had to realize that they were talking about 100-plus-year-old technology and wanted my technology to emulate, you know, the maturity that theirs had. And in spite of their resistance, it did it anyway in 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's, I mean, technologies will evolve consistently, and especially now that we're entering the age of augmented reality, artificial intelligence, everything that we see and experience will change. But going back to the sectors that I was sharing with you, the work, primarily work, it's also in business, in education, and in healthcare, because globally all of those sectors are the essential sectors for humanity to be able to transform into next stages of our evolution and transform their being, how they can actually grow and expand themselves and being successful and being healthy and being wealthy through tremendous shifts and changes that the consciousness will experience as a result of merging of biology and technology.
But I have to ask and draw out of you this contrarian type of mindset. Would a government be willing to do that when the governments, some of the government, many governments are in the business of controlling their populations and only kind of keeping them segmented? So what you speak of, which I happen to share your beliefs in, is very disruptive to a status quo, which could be a government body. And so we have things like cryptocurrencies, right? Digital currency. All of these things are internet. All of these things that are related to a disruption. And here you're coming out with a coaching process, which is a human technology, not necessarily a physical technology. And you're marrying the two. So that's very exciting to me. So I want to get, maybe if you can look in the crystal ball and see what do you see down the road, knowing the fact that the governments could fight this. But this is kind of like, you know, it's out of the bag already. It's out of the genie's bottle, right? So it's in the hands of the people. And that's where the disruption is going to come from. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on what does it look like 5, 10 years down the road?
5 years or 10 years down the line, as we develop the technologies, which basically creates a direct link with our brain. And as more people link into this web of information and being able to instantly connect with everything in your brain, meaning being able to upload our brains into Dropbox, and somebody else says, I'm going to be Juan today. And they experience real reality. Yes, I mean, it is
I want to
scary.
be Tony today.
Yes, you want to be Tony today. But really, we are developing that powerful technology right now. And unfortunately, many governments in the world, they still live in the 20th century thinking. And they still have the caveman mentality of thinking. And this is what stops many governments to actually put the policies in place that are needed, both the ethics and the policies and the law in place, to be able to see how collectively we can work. Because the danger of the way we work currently, we're creating the most powerful technologies right now. in a world where people are segregated, governments are segregated, and every government will create the technology in their own thinking, in their own image, which means we'll end up almost in the world of Terminator. If we're not careful at the moment, and if we as people do not dissolve those problems that we see one another as enemies, rather sort of as another human being in an experience that has equal power as you have, given the chance. So it is in our interest as human beings to collaborate, because we work as a symbiosis of multiple systems. And yes, for sure, there are systems out there who may have, I would say, viruses, and they need cleaning up. But we also have the wisdom and the knowledge to be able to do that. I gave last year a TED talk in Wilmington, in Philadelphia, called Technological Armageddon, the wake-up call. And the reason behind the TED talk was to help many people out there to really start thinking, especially those who design the technology. So most people, there's like this technophobia that's going on globally, because it's the uncertainty what will happen, because things are not being communicated clearly to people.
Sure.
And what kind of technologies are being developed, and who's actually creating those technologies. So if we take somebody who has the mindset, let's say they don't like white people, they don't like black people, they don't like gay people, they don't like business owners, they don't like a race, they don't like Chinese, they could create this powerful technology to eliminate the entire race based on their genetic makeup. So this is the danger that we're heading towards, but also it's an opportunity for many people to come together to say, okay, what ethics and morals and laws we need to put together for humanity, not for individual countries.
And that are enforceable.
And enforceable.
And speaking about the talks that you've given, you also gave one at the United Nations, right? Tell us
Correct.
a little bit about that.
The talk at the United Nations was really about a lot of people asking me, is global peace possible? And my solution to global peace is helping people find inner peace. So whilst at the moment it's a vision which is unfulfilled vision for many people out there, it's just they are in vain of trying to see that the world's going to come together into peace. You can't bring a world into peace that has 7.8 billion people thinking 7.8 trillion ways. Therefore, the technology that they run, the software that they run, it's full of viruses. So you can't really create a peaceful society if people in that society, in this instance humanity, run at a different technology. They will not communicate, and this is why we have this global problem. This is why we cannot communicate, because we put our self-interest first, not collective interest. A human being who operates at a higher level of vibration does not look about himself, it looks about the collective things. It does not look about America, how can I save America, but how can America save the global world? So we're shifting that mentality that used to be how America can play a global role into actually helping humanity, to now pulling back and saying humanity on side, how can America thrive? Well, you cannot thrive if you don't help other people to thrive. You cannot have peace if your neighbor is at war. So this is why, or hungry. If you can't really feel amazing about yourself if we see so many people out there in poverty. We can't feel loving if we pass on the street and see so many people who are not really in that space, and putting a blind eye to it. And unfortunately, wherever I go, wherever I travel, many people put a blind eye on it, including we do that with ourselves, where we put a blind eye to many things about ourselves and we're not really facing it. So we've learned to snooze the alarm that we have inside of ourselves, the alarm that wakes you up. So it's really, we are in a coma. We live in a coma right now.
Right. Now, before we go, is there any last words you'd like to share with our audience?
Learn and educate yourself.
Thank you very much, Tony. We're here at the 9th Avenue, New York City Independent Film Festival with Tony J. Selimi. Take care.
Juan, thank you.
Good?
Good.
Okay.
All right. How does this work now? How do I stop it?
Just wait. Tony, this is